Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says there's no business case for liquefied natural gas. We know that's not true, but even if it were, there's definitely a moral case. I'm Sheila Gunn Reid, and you're watching The Gunn Show. This free episode of The Gunn Show is brought to you by...
Are you tired of walking around for hours this time of year looking for the perfect Christmas gift for your loved ones? Well, have no fear. Rebel News Christmas merch is here. When it comes to putting a smile on the face of the patriots in your life this Christmas, our Rebel News store has everything you'll need. Just like that lady singing in church for Thanksgiving.
I got beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, ram, raw, dog, beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, chicken, turkeys, rat, you name it!
We've got Christmas tees, Christmas hoodies, Christmas beanies. My personal favorite is the All I Want for Christmas is a New Prime Minister top. Can I get an amen in the back? But we also have the Rebel favorites that you can wear all year long, like our classic Is It Trudeau or Castro tee, or this new one that says free speech is a must. But warning in advance, the leftist Kevins and Karens of the world will be triggered. Now, if you head to rebelnewsstore.com right now, you can save. If you buy 2 unisex t-shirts, you get your third one free. All you have to do is use the coupon code CHRISTMAS and you're in business. And remember, everything that you buy at the rebelnewsstore.com not only blesses the loved ones you bought it for, it also helps support our independent journalism so we can keep on bringing you the other side of the story. Merry Christmas.
Oh, hey, everybody. Welcome to The Gunn Show. You're noticing a little bit of a different set today because I'm actually in the Toronto head office for a couple of days this week. And incidentally, joining me is a fellow Albertan, Robbie Picard. He is the founder of Oil Sand Strong. And I wanted to talk to Robbie about a bunch of things, including his latest project, which we'll get to in a second. But I wanted to talk to you, Robbie, about Justin Trudeau's comments that there is no business case for liquefied natural gas. That's crazy, right?
That's the most ridiculously stupid, if I can say it one more time, ridiculously stupid comment that he's ever made. And he's made quite a few ridiculously stupid
comments. Bar is pretty high there.
I don't understand it at all, because that supplying Europe with energy could change the entire makeup of our country. If he's so woke and cares about Indigenous income, economic reconciliation, social programs, dental care, all of the things that they talk about that they want to try and achieve, selling natural gas to Germany, to Europe, would be the best thing that we could ever do. It would benefit every single province. I am blown away that he doesn't think there's a business case for it, and now Qatar is going to benefit from it. So we're every other country that has enough brains to sell their energy. Russia will continue to benefit from it. And we, once again, have this, I don't know what it is, Stockholm syndrome, whatever you want to call it, that we don't pursue our country's best interest when it comes to energy.
At the very least, even if there weren't a business case, there's a moral case
100%.
For selling liquefied natural gas to places like Germany, when right now they're buying, I think 50% of their energy comes from Russia. And I'm reliably informed by the Liberals that they are concerned that Russia is benefiting from everything and meddling in our politics. If you actually cared about the Russian scare, wouldn't you want to offset Gazprom?
I've been asking myself this question for years. Why don't we pursue our energy needs 100% to stop countries like Russia
or Qatar
or Saudi Arabia or Venezuela, dictator type countries? We're supposedly have the best environmental standards in the world. We have we're a free country with human rights, and we have ethics, but yet we don't pursue that in the energy sector. I don't understand it. I wish I truly did. I did speak to a bunch of people in Calgary that are involved in natural gas, and their jaws are dropping because this is something that they want to pursue. I mean, Germany, I would make an argument, is ahead of us when it comes to energy. They've already tried wind and they've tried solar, and now they're going back to coal because coal
Right.
is cheap and reliable. And if you care about human rights, cheap energy keeps human rights accessible. I am blown away time and time again by this notion that somehow so-called renewable energy is somehow greener and has less impact on the environment. It doesn't. And in fact, I would argue when they pursue this mass production of electric everything to replace, gas or diesel powered vehicles, you are going to see more destruction of the planet than you've ever seen. And it's already kind of starting. Now, from what I'm told, there's countries in Europe now that are trying to ban certain times to drive electric cars. They don't want you to plug your electric cars in because you're going to kill the grid. So what this is doing is this is forcing people into poverty very fast for wokeness from, a trust fund, not just Trudeau, multiple trust fund babies who are in positions of power that determine what the world does because of their, because they're elected officials, and it's scaring the shit out of everybody.
You were in town last night for the Jordan Peterson event with the Democracy Fund, and that was one thing that he mentioned was the Western world has no moral right to damn the developing world to energy poverty. People need to be able to turn their lights on so that they can do their homework at night, so that they aren't burning cow dung to cook their food over. That's one of the leading causes of illness in the developing world, is a lack of clean burning electricity, fossil fuels, where they are using wood and cow dung to cook their food inside their houses. And that it's immoral for us to keep access to energy away from them in the name of saving the planet.
So I think the biggest problem that we have, so we're in Toronto, one of the largest cities in North America, definitely Canada's largest city, and it is surrounded by benefits of fossil fuels. Yeah. But a lot of people that live here don't understand that. They don't recognize that their entire life exists because of fossil fuels, even if they're not burning them.
Right.
As far driving, it takes fossil fuels for that battery to drive that Tesla. It takes fossil fuels to warm these giant towers. And the disconnect is costing the world. I don't believe there's any type of energy that is green. And if they don't stop this insanity of pushing this agenda so fast, they do not care about the harm that it causes. Fort McMurray is a great example. When Jane Fonda came up, and when I confronted her, then they kicked her out of town. Before, there's not been a celebrity visit since, and I'm proud of that. But here's the thing. Greenpeace did not care about the Indigenous community in Fort McMurray. They just wanted to use them to push their agenda. And now that they've been kicked out and they're no longer welcome, and all the Indigenous communities have deals with oil and gas, which is good, they're on to the next thing. But not everyone can stand up to these environmentalists effectively and win like we did in Fort McMurray. And I'm concerned because what they're doing is they're going to ruin lives. Yeah. And Trudeau has not... If it's real simple. If Germany does not get their natural gas from Canada, they're going to get it from any other country that'll sell it to them because their people need it to live. You can talk about future issues of the environment, then there's the immediate, I need to stay warm so I can feed my family and live. And that is what's happening in Europe right now. And I think that our Prime Minister, I don't know if it's, I don't think we've encountered this type of narcissism in politics before. I also think everyone underestimates him. He's not. He's not stupid. He's a seasoned politician. Yeah. Probably the most seasoned in the G7 or G8. And we have to understand that he has survived more. You tell me a prime minister that could survive so much scandals between blackface and how many
kokanee grope. Let us never forget.
the first what was Joni's title? The
Jody Wilson-Raybould. Yeah, the AG.
Yeah, the first Indigenous Attorney General of the country, gone. The guy has survived scandal after scandal after scandal. But here's the thing, I think for some politicians, I spent a lot of time in Ottawa, and I didn't hate Ottawa as much as I thought I was going to, but I actually learned a lot. And it's a game in Ottawa, but the game they play in Ottawa has major effects on the rest of us. And I think that is very scary.
Now, you talked a little bit about, or you sort of touched on the Indigenous partnerships in liquefied natural gas. I don't think people maybe outside of the West realize the amount of benefit to Indigenous communities if Canada developed liquefied natural gas. So many Indigenous groups in northern BC have partnerships with oil and gas companies, and they would be the ones standing to benefit. It will lift communities out of generational poverty, but it happens to be white liberals in urban centers who are damning them to generational poverty.
So I've interviewed a lot of Indigenous business leaders over the years, and I interviewed Chief Crystal Smith from the Tsleil-Waututh First Nation when I was in BC, and they just landed the Coastal GasLinks project, which was huge. My favorite, I didn't get to film this, was so amazing. This old guy comes up to me, maybe not really old, like 56 or something, right? And he comes up to me and he says, I just want to tell you my story. He's like, I got a job because of Coastal GasLinks, and I'm going to be able to work 10 years, better my family, leave something for my grandkids. And I'm like, well, you didn't work? He's like, well, I've always tried to work, but it was hard because, you know, like
There's no jobs.
Yeah, and he struggled, right, a little bit. And he's like, now I've got a good job. And then you have people in Greenpeace and like Sapora Berman that are going to take that from them, take that opportunity for what?
And the dignity of earning something and leaving something behind.
And that is where you have, I don't know what it is, but I would call them, I'm not even going to call them liberals. You have a certain type of people that primarily live in cities that are candidly overeducated in a lot of ways, but have zero practical abilities in life.
Yeah,
right?
My mom used to call them overeducated, stupid people.
Overeducated, stupid people
Yeah.
that are making decisions that affect the lives of other people. And I've seen it time and time again. Like when I was in Ottawa recently, and I had a dinner with a bunch of press, and they have zero clue what happens, to the point where they don't I don't believe they understand that milk comes from a cow. Like, I don't think they get that. Like, and it's because if you think about it, you live in a city your whole life, you go to the grocery store, it's there.
Right.
Right. You don't understand that. Like, it's a whole process to get milk from a cow. The cow's got to get pregnant, and then the cow has to have a calf. That calf has to leave the cow, and the cow has to go to a dairy farm, and then that creates milk. And I don't think they understand. I don't think they understand by avoiding eating meat, they're actually causing more harm to animals because of all the extra land that's processed to create vegan stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
So there's such a disconnect. And one of the conversations like I actually had with Dr. Jordan Peterson last night is like, I don't necessarily feel like we're a country. We're the second largest landmass in the world. We're almost too big and too small to be a country sometimes.
Yeah.
Because we are so spread apart with a smaller population that people from Newfoundland do not necessarily understand how it affects people in British Columbia. Toronto is like its own ecosystem onto itself. And if we don't start a proper dialogue fairly soon, we're going to have problems. And, you know, I interviewed Danielle Smith, Premier Danielle Smith for Oil and Gas World magazine. And a lot of people that I knew were like, oh my God, she's talking about separatism and with the Sovereignty Act. And I'm like, it is about time that we had a premier who is willing to stand up for Alberta.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I brought up when I was in Ottawa interviewing different politicians is like, our voting system is not fair.
No.
Because Quebec and Ontario can determine Alberta's future. By the time the election is done here, it's over. We might get to pick an opposition. But if Alberta votes Conservative every single time, it's not going to make a difference. And so they said, well, you know, that's how the population is. And I'm like, if the world was ran like that, if the United Nations Security Council was ran based on world population, China and India would determine the entire future of the world often. Mm-hmm. And I think if we're going to stay as a country, we need to start understanding that different regions have different issues. And sure, Alberta has less population than Ontario and Quebec, but we don't have less money.
Right.
And the amount of money that leaves Alberta to support Quebec and their daycare and their social programs to keep their budget balanced, it's insane and it's wrong.
And sorry to interrupt you, but we should not be abused either just because there's a few of us instead of a lot of us.
Exactly, 100%. And so one of the things that happened, the Oil Sands Strong's page has exploded this month. Our reach is going to hit 40 million by the end of the week, which is pretty substantial.
More than everybody in Canada combined,
out of the oil and gas defense stuff. So I'm pretty proud of that. And one of the things, I got a message from a mayor from Quebec, and he said, well, I agree with you, but you're being too hard on Quebec, and will you meet? So I'm going to be going to Quebec to interview a bunch of Quebec mayors that are pro-pipelines. But I said,
Great.
well, but what I said to him was, and he agreed with me, I said, I wasn't, they know it. I said, like, you had a balanced budget when we were going through tough times. How is that proper? Why should we be paying you to have a balanced budget? Like, why are you not paying back into the system, which they never have really?
Right.
And he agreed, and he said, well, and I'm like, here's the difference between Alberta and the rest of the country. We are so generous. We truly don't care that we pay transfer payments out. It doesn't really bother Albertans.
If they let us work.
Or give us a pipeline.
Exactly.
Let us get a pipeline for the Energy East pipeline so we don't have to ship oil all the way through the Panama Canal. We're a country and we're sending oil through all the way around the whole world up through the Panama Canal to New Brunswick. Why is that even a conversation?
Yeah.
And stop acting like that like with people from Quebec, like you're not better than us, right? Like you're basically, glorified welfare recipients taking all of our tax dollars to keep your programs going. Because if you took the Alberta money out of the equation, the social programs in Quebec would not be quite as strong. And if we honestly want to help each other, there's a lot of similarities between Quebec and Alberta in a lot of ways.
I'm very sympathetic to the things that they do now that they're doing them, and now that as Albertans we are looking at it and saying, okay, well, you're doing this in Quebec to protect your culture.
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing the same
exactly.
thing here?
Like, and it's even the responses, like I was blown away by the amount she's getting attacked over it. And I found myself, because I try to be nonpartisan. It's not always easy for me, but I thought, no way, I'm gonna defend Premier Danielle Smith here, because she deserves us to have her back. All she's saying is a fair deal for Alberta. How many pipelines are canceled under Trudeau? Energy East, Northern Gateway, Keystone XL, debatable, but you know what I mean. And why is it why don't we have a prime minister that represents all of us? Why is he not like he makes statements like, they're going to phase out the oil sands. He hasn't been pro Alberta or pro pipeline. Sure, they bought the Trans Mountain pipeline, the Trans Mountain. They bought the Trans Mountain pipeline,
but nobody wanted them to buy it. We just wanted them to let it get built.
And now that they've bought it, how many billions of dollars above cost it is, because government can't run anything. And I think that's where we have a similarity with Quebec. Get out of our business, let us run our run our province. So I think that Danielle misses what we need right now. We need some teeth, and we need to stand up to I don't know, it's almost like we're in an abusive relationship with Ottawa and we have to pay them alimony.
Speaking of that alimony, I was talking to somebody maybe a couple weeks ago, and he said it sure would change the tune of the feds on pipelines if we started sending our equalization in the form of oil and gas.
Yeah.
If we said, no, here's the oil and gas in value, you market it, pretty soon we'd have every pipeline we ever wanted.
Well, and I think one thing that has come from like this, the situation in Ukraine with Russia, is these woke morons who somehow think that we're going to get rid of fossil fuels. It's ridiculous. Like, I know we were going to talk about Harry and Meghan, but can I talk about Elton John? Sure. Here's his wokeness, okay? This is what you're dealing with when you got celebrity morons talking about energy. So, I'm talking a little bit about Harry and Meghan. He lent them their private jet, his private jet, right? And he argued. He's like, well, I bought carbon credits. So this is what the woke think. They go to these conferences. They all take private jets to the climate change conference, right? He thinks, because he's rich, he can buy credits to offset his jet set lifestyle.
Which the poor can't do.
Which they can't do. And they're just trying to survive,
Yeah.
They're even gone into I have a Yukon, right, in Fort McMurray. They've even gone into my Yukon. I film all day. And when it's 40 below, I want to run my car all day. I don't care. I'm in and out of it. I can't do that anymore with the stupid fob. So I started, it turns off. I can't even leave it running. Like, not that that's a big deal, but that is what I'm saying. Like, I'm in 40 below weather often, which is colder than most people, and I'm trying to earn a living and do my job. And now I can't even idle my Yukon. So these people making these decisions for us, it's insane.
They don't live like us. They don't understand.
Well, and then when it affects them, like it did in Germany now, where like they're worried, like how are we going to stay warm? Well, then we're all back to coal.
Burn, baby, burn.
Yeah.
Roll coal.
Yeah, let's get rid of the windmills. We're going to get rid of this, right? And meanwhile, we're taking the German model here. Yeah. How stupid are we? Yeah. We could look ahead in the future and be like, hey, that didn't quite work. And then, Alex Epstein said something the other day. I was watching on Jordan Peterson's show, and I thought, a good point. Even myself, why have I not stood up for coal?
I have been.
I have not.
Yeah.
I have not. I've been oil sands, natural gas. But I'm like, I have a friend of mine who was a hardcore NDP supporter. She was in Fort McMurray in the Parkland County region.
Yep.
And long story short, she said to me, she's like, when the NDP came in here, they leveled our community, which took years to recover from the shutting down of coal.
They're not going to recover. They're not going to recover. You look at Hanna, Alberta.
Yeah.
The town exists because of coal. Mm. And, when you think about people who have generations of their family have lived and worked in the coal mine, and it is a good job. It is a good paying job. It's often a union job.
Yeah.
Where are the union activists to stand up for those jobs? And those people reclaim the land. We've got industrial scrubbers. If you test the air quality outside of a coal generating electricity plant, it's often way better than Vancouver.
So, and the problem is that we've somehow just said, I'm guilty of this too. I got so caught up in the oil sands defense that I somehow thought like,
it's the same fight.
It's the same fight, and I realized that closer and closer. And it's like Germany's turning the coal back on. Maybe instead of this notion we need to get rid of coal, maybe we just need to make it better or constantly monitor it, burn it better.
We do though,
and that's what I'm saying. Like we've already started, but the world doesn't see it that way, and that's what's scary.
Because when they see coal, they see China. They don't see Genesee, Alberta. Yeah. They don't see Parkland County. They don't see Paint Earth. They don't see those places. They see the particulate just being barfed into the sky by these Chinese coal mines, which none of the environmentalists seem to complain about, by the way.
So here's the other thing that really concerns me about the so-called environmentalists. How quickly they're okay ruining people's lives.
Oh, it's so fast. It's in a flash. Your job, you're on the altar of green energy like that.
Yeah, and when they devastate communities, right? Where are they then? Because like they're still jet setting. Yeah. They're still living their highfalutin lifestyle. One of my favorite things that did is when we took on Mike Kadima, because Mike Kadima used to
from Greenpeace.
He's not with them anymore, but we took on Mike Kadima, and I've always thought that he was like a useless hypocrite. And I had a chance to talk to him one time at the tech when he was there protesting tech, and I wish I would have got into it with him there, but. He was posting at the same time he was like jumping on buildings and putting banners up and all of like he actually staged a major protest at Shell in Fort McMurray where they had helicopters above the mine where they put these banners out, and he did all of that kind of stuff. But meanwhile, the same time he was posting, I'm in Iceland, I'm here, I'm there, and he was like basically like a jet setting traveler.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is what we're dealing with. And the best part of the Jane Fonda situation is finally the Indigenous people in Fort McMurray said no more.
Yeah.
Because you're affecting their jobs too. They don't care. And I think that we need a prime minister that's somewhere in the middle of it all, that wants to have highest environmental standards, that understands that new technology is going to pop up, and it may or may not replace or improve what's there. But you are sitting on a technology that has made the entire world a better, more equal, affordable place, and you're just going to toss it aside for some wokeness that probably won't happen. Even Elon Musk knows that we need fossil fuels more than ever. And you can make that argument if there's one person that should not necessarily support fossil fuels, it could be the CEO of Tesla. And that's where I think that we have a problem. But more and more people need to call out these so-called environmentalists. Like, I mean, the hypocrisy, like, Rich Elton John thinks that it's okay to fly 2 past royals on a jet because he paid money for carbon credits. So.
Now, tell me about your latest project, Oil and Gas World, because I think you're doing some of that, taking the fight to them, but also telling the stories of the people who are in oil and gas, and they're normal people. It's not always CEOs. It's just the normal people whose lives are being changed by oil and gas.
So I think our last interview, we were in Red Deer.
Yes.
And
you were just sort of launching.
Yeah, I just launched Oil and Gas World magazine. And Oil and Gas World magazine is not just a magazine. It's all digital. Every interview I do is digital. And I've already interviewed over 150 people.
And there's a video component.
There's a video component on oilandgasworld.ca, which will be the website. And we did a print magazine. I was actually surprised. I did the print magazine just to give people.
Yeah.
And I've given out probably 15,000 copies now. And people really like it. They read it cover to cover.
Yep.
So when Pierre Poilievre wore my hoodie in Ottawa, and
it was like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, a year and a half ago, and the Carleton Liberal Association tried to say we were white supremacists, and then they took it down, and we sold a ton of hoodies online. My revenge was I'd get a bus and start a magazine and travel across the country interviewing people, because I thought the sheer arrogance and disconnect from the so-called elites from Ottawa. They didn't know me. They didn't know the organization. They don't think about Oil Sands Strong. They haven't been to Fort McMurray. But they call me many things. You can call me a lot, but you can't call me a white supremacist. That's just something that's not who I am.
You're Indigenous.
Yes, I'm Métis. I'm also gay. That very day, I was filming a bunch of my black friends. They wanted to do. It was really funny when that happened, because they called me, Robbie, we want to do this funky video, and they wanted to do a dance video in the hoodie, and I was actually kind of like trying to film it. So I was like, you can say everything, but like if I was a white supremacist, I certainly would not be going out of my way to film friends of mine who are black in our hoodie that support Fort McMurray, because Fort McMurray is very multicultural.
That's
I'm multicultural.
what I was going to say. It speaks to how little these people actually know about Fort McMurray. A lot of immigrants come there because there are a lot of jobs, and it is surrounded by Indigenous communities.
Well, what they're doing is, and I think the only way they win over and over again is because they somehow try to paint people a certain way. You have gay people who are conservative. You have gay people who like Dr. Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
You have black people who don't ever want to vote NDP that are so pro-oil. So I think and the fact is the majority of Indigenous people support the oil and gas industry.
I would suggest that there's no more an Indigenous industry in this country than oil and gas. Most oil and gas projects are in Indigenous communities. That's where they get to work and live. Well,
and I think the thing that the oil companies have done, and frankly, the Indigenous companies now, there are oil producers, right? Mm-hmm. Like for my marketing company, like 95% of them are Indigenous-owned businesses, right? So when they made that statement, that was just so kind of bizarre. It completely caught me off guard. I was just blown away. So, but I thought about many things. I thought I could go to Ottawa. I could demand an apology. I thought I'm going to do one better. I'm going to take time and go across the country and talk to people. And here's a lesson that I learned being in Ontario that I think that we all need to learn very, very badly. If I'm in Ottawa, I don't care what happens in Fort McMurray. Mm. And if I'm in Fort McMurray, I don't necessarily care about what happens in Ottawa. So one of the things that I've done is I've taken time to have dialogue and conversation and talk to people. And I sold, by the time I got to Upslaw, which is on the way to Thunder Bay, I sold out of all of my hoodies. I got pulled over more time and I was trying to lie low because I didn't want to be.
You're lying low in a bus with a big logo of your company on the side? I'm not sure, Robbie.
Well, normally I would have done a lot more promoting of it, but sure. I wanted to get there in one piece, right? And I wanted to, so it went viral, but it was a different kind of viral. It was very word of mouth.
Right.
And people were pulling me over on the highway. They were talking to me.
I saw people tweeting about you.
Sending
tweets like, "Oh, we saw Robbie's bus."
It got a lot of attention.
Yeah.
But it was good attention. And one of the things that I realized is that we had solid dialogue. And that is the goal of this. The goal, I want to move the needle. I don't just want to have, millions of reach. I want to make it so people in Ontario and Quebec understand where we're coming from and hopefully support us. And go to their politicians and say, "Look, why are we being so nasty to a province that has given us so much, including our higher level of standard of living, which has a great deal because of Alberta?"
Right. So how do people find your magazine, get involved? I know you're looking for advertisers.
100%. I need a ton of money. Let's just be clear here. I need big money. Okay, so I might actually do a gift send go, because apparently GoFundMe is not cool anymore.
Yeah.
So I might do a gift send go, but truthfully, go to oilandgasworld.ca or oilsandstrong.com, or RobbiePicard.com, and there'll be links there on how we want to get subscribers to this.
Yeah.
And we'll mail them copies. I'd like buy our shirts. We have a new order of t-shirts and hoodies coming out.
Great.
And that's kind of where it is. And we have great content. There's going to be lots of interviews and lots of people that we've talked to.
That's excellent.
Including.
Oh, great.
And every person that we interview, we get a painting done of them. So we
You came to my house.
I did. If I
I
can
took
find
him
it.
out for a rip on my quad.
So if you look closely, you got, I had, Russell Thomas did a beautiful painting of the lovely Sheila Gunn Reid, who's now in perfect shape, who, doesn't eat until 2:00 and works out every day.
I do.
Makes me feel guilty because I had breakfast this morning. So I was like, but yeah, and I'm interviewing a lot of conservatives. I've got a lot of politicians. So
And it's a peek inside of our lives. Like you see a different side of people that you see in the mainstream media, but you see that other side of them.
Well, I know a lot of people from like both the right and the left, and I've talked to a lot of people, but I will say, in my personal journey through the advocacy and setting everything up that I have, the nicest, most kindest people to me have been the conservative people.
You better believe it.
And unfortunately, conservatives don't come across the same way. It's one of the things I said to the conservatives. I said, here's a tip any conservative politician watching right now, okay? Rachel Notley will take a picture of Thanksgiving dinner and she'll have dirty dishes in the background. People connect to that. Whereas conservatives tend to want everything perfect. This is my perfect tree and this is everything, you know what I mean? I think conservatives need to show a little bit more of their personal side. So the people that are not necessarily conservative liberal, that are kind of the swing voters, can connect on a little bit more of a human level. That is my one suggestion. I think that is what I'm trying to do for people that I interview. I want to make sure that I'm getting a true story, but it's not all about business all the time. Like, what is the point of all of this if you don't enjoy your family or you don't enjoy your life?
Great. Robbie, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a real treat to be in a different environment, talking to you instead of over Zoom or Skype.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see everybody, well, not back here in the same time, in the same place next week. I'll probably be back in studio. But as always, don't let the government tell you that you've had too much to think.